The first time my marriage ended, I watched another man take my wife and stood there believing there was nothing I could do. The second time a man tried to take my marriage from me, I walked into the room, sat beside my wife, looked him directly in the eyes, and made sure he understood something. There is a difference between a husband who does not know what is happening and a husband who knows everything. That is the whole story in 2 sentences. But 2 sentences cannot explain the sound of a marriage becoming quiet. They cannot explain what it feels like when an old betrayal wakes inside your chest after more than a decade and begins whispering that history is repeating itself. They cannot explain why a wealthy stranger believed he could study my deepest wound, press against it carefully, and cause the woman I love to slip away from me. And they certainly cannot explain what happened on a restaurant deck above Table Rock Lake in September of 2024. To understand that, you need to understand who I was before I walked onto that deck. You need to understand the first woman who left me, the second woman who chose me, and the man who was arrogant enough to believe money could turn one story into the other. My name is Wesley Cash. I am a civil engineer in Springfield, Missouri. In September of 2024, I was 38 years old. On paper, I had a good life. A career I had worked hard to build. A house on West Walnut Street. A dependable truck that belonged entirely to me. A savings account large enough to let me sleep at night. And a wife named Vanessa, who was more intelligent, patient, and quietly courageous than anyone I had ever known. From the outside, I looked secure. What people could not see was the old fracture running through the center of me. A wound created 12 years earlier. A wound I had covered with success but never truly repaired. I married for the first time when I was 26. Her name was Tracy. We met during our junior year at Missouri State University. We studied together. Ate cheap pizza after late classes. Made plans inside coffee shops as though life were a clean sheet of paper waiting for us to design it. We married the year after graduation. I believed, with the absolute confidence available only to young people who do not yet understand how little they know, that we were permanent. We were the couple friends described as lucky. The couple who had found each other early. The couple everyone expected to remain together while other marriages became complicated. We lasted 3 years. Tracy left me for a man named Russell Chambers. Russell was 41. He owned 3 automobile dealerships across southwest Missouri. He drove a different vehicle every week. He wore watches that looked heavier than my monthly rent. He carried the effortless confidence of a man who had never needed to check his bank balance before making a decision. Russell was not openly cruel. He did not threaten me. He did not behave like a villain from a film. He was simply richer than I was. Substantially richer. Visibly richer. Rich in ways that mattered to Tracy more than she had ever admitted. She told me at our kitchen table inside the apartment on National Avenue. I remember every detail. The coffee stain near the edge of the table. The refrigerator humming behind her. The unopened electric bill beside my hand. Tracy sat across from me and spoke with the calmness of someone announcing a decision already made. "Wesley, I love you." Then came the sentence that reshaped my life. "I just need more than this." More than this. More than our apartment. More than the second-hand furniture. More than the 29-year-old engineer who still packed lunch because restaurants cost too much. More than a future that had not developed quickly enough for her. More than me. She did not apologize. That was the part that stayed. Not merely that she left. The absence of regret. The way she looked at our life as though it had been a waiting room she was relieved to leave. I signed the divorce papers in 2013. I was 29. After leaving Nora Jones's law office on Boonville Avenue, I sat inside my truck for nearly an hour. I made 3 promises. I would survive. I would rebuild. And I would never again be the man who lost his wife because another man had more money. At the time, I believed those promises represented strength. Years later, I understood that I had done something more complicated. I had carried the wound forward without closing it. I had buried it beneath ambition. But buried things are not necessarily gone. Sometimes they are simply waiting for the right pressure to return. I spent my early 30s becoming the man I believed Tracy would not have left. I accepted every difficult assignment. Worked longer than anyone expected. Reviewed drawings at midnight. Returned to construction sites before sunrise. I became a senior engineer at 32. Purchased my house at 33. Paid off my truck. Built savings. Built a reputation. Built a life so solid that nobody could ever look at it and call it insufficient. The problem was that I was not building only for myself. Some part of me was still standing inside that apartment, trying to prove something to a woman who had already left. Then I met Vanessa Farrow. It happened during a fundraising dinner for Harmony House, a domestic violence shelter in Springfield. A colleague had purchased a table and pressured me into accepting the extra ticket. I went reluctantly. Vanessa attended because she had volunteered with the shelter for 2 years, providing pro bono therapy sessions to residents rebuilding their lives. I first saw her near the bar, politely dismantling a city councilman's argument about the shelter's funding. The councilman was older, louder, and more powerful inside local politics. Vanessa did not care. She challenged every point calmly. Quoted figures. Corrected his assumptions. And somehow allowed him to leave the conversation without fully realizing he had lost it. I stood several feet away and thought, that woman is going to be difficult. And completely worth it. I was correct about both. We dated slowly. Deliberately. During our first month, I told her about Tracy. Not every detail. Enough. I told her I had been divorced and that I needed to move at a pace I could trust. Vanessa did not become defensive. She did not tell me to forget the past. She simply nodded. That is fine. I am not in a hurry. I would rather do this correctly than quickly. And she meant it. We married in June of 2018. The ceremony was small and outdoors. Vanessa said she had no interest in any event requiring a seating chart more complicated than a building evacuation plan. My friend Chamberlain stood beside me. Her closest friend, Gloria Howell, stood beside her. When Vanessa took my hands, she did not promise perfection. She promised honesty. At the time, I believed honesty meant telling the truth. I would later learn that honesty also means trusting the other person with truths you fear may hurt them. By the beginning of 2024, we had been married nearly 6 years. We did not have children. That conversation remained on a shelf between us. Not forgotten. Not avoided. Simply postponed because we were both serious about our work and did not want to rush a decision that would change every part of our lives. We believed we had time. Our marriage was not glamorous. It was better than glamorous. It was dependable. Saturday mornings began on the porch swing. 2 sugars in my coffee. Vanessa's black. I never once reversed them. Sunday meant groceries at Hy-Vee on South Campbell. 4 or 5 times a year, when something deserved celebrating, we ate dinner at Flame Steakhouse on Glenstone Avenue. Most evenings were quieter. We sat inside the living room pretending to watch television while actually talking. Not about anything important. Work. Neighbors. A ridiculous article one of us had read. The things Eden, our beagle mix, had destroyed during the day. Those conversations had no clear purpose. They held the marriage together anyway. That is how good marriages often work. They are strengthened less by anniversaries and dramatic promises than by ordinary evenings during which 2 people remain interested in each other. Vanessa was a licensed professional counselor. Her specialty was executive behavioral health. High-functioning adults dealing with addiction, anxiety, narcissistic patterns, and the particular damage created when enormous wealth shields someone from consequences for too long. Over 12 years, she built her practice from a modest office suite on South Campbell Avenue into something supported almost entirely through private referrals. Corporate attorneys, financial advisors, chief executives, people whose names appeared in regional business publications. Vanessa was exceptional at her work. Patient, precise, difficult to manipulate. Most importantly, she could say no to people who had spent their lives believing no was a temporary inconvenience. In January of 2024, that ability brought a man named Conrad Bale into her office. Conrad was 53. A developer and private equity investor based in Kansas City. His holdings stretched across Missouri, Arkansas, and Tennessee. Public estimates placed his wealth somewhere between $300 and $400 million. He had been married twice. Divorced twice. Inside Kansas City's financial circles, he was described as brilliant, relentless, and extraordinarily difficult. A private wealth attorney referred him to Vanessa. He was struggling with alcohol dependency and wanted treatment without the exposure of a public rehabilitation program. The referring attorney also described him as having significant blind spots concerning the way he affected other people. That was expensive language for a simple truth. Conrad Bale treated other human beings as instruments. He viewed their boundaries as obstacles. Their emotions as variables. Their loyalty as something to purchase. For 53 years, enough money had protected him from meaningful resistance. Vanessa scheduled secure video sessions every other week. I knew only that she had taken a difficult new client. She mentioned it one evening while we ate dinner. No name. No private information. Vanessa treated confidentiality as sacred. "He is a handful," she said. "But interesting work." I thought nothing of it. I did not know that somewhere inside those sessions, Conrad had begun looking at my wife not as a therapist, but as something he wanted to possess. The first indication came in March. Vanessa arrived home one Thursday evening quieter than usual. Not upset. She rarely displayed distress outwardly. She processed internally and spoke only after she understood what she felt. But I knew her different silences. The way a musician understands the difference between a pause and an empty measure. That evening, her silence carried weight. Long day? A session went sideways. She placed her bag on the counter, poured water, and stood near the sink looking into the backyard. I did not push. Pressuring Vanessa after a difficult session was rarely helpful. Later that night, when she believed I was asleep, I heard her release a long, controlled breath. The breath of a woman managing something. I did not know the thing she was managing had a name. And that it had already begun studying us. By April, Conrad's behavior had shifted. He began with carefully measured flattery. Comments disguised as therapeutic insight. He said no therapist had ever understood him the way Vanessa did. He praised her intelligence in ways that lingered beyond professional appreciation. He commented on her voice. Her presence. The calm he felt after seeing her. Individually, each remark could be dismissed. Together, they formed a pattern. Vanessa understood exactly what he was doing. A client seeking genuine therapeutic connection behaves one way. A narcissistic client testing the limits behaves another. Conrad was testing the perimeter. In the middle of April, he crossed it. During a session intended to explore the triggers behind his drinking, Conrad made a direct and inappropriate personal comment toward Vanessa. She shut it down immediately. No embarrassment. No uncertainty. She named the boundary. Redirected the session. Documented the incident in her clinical notes. Then she sat with a decision she was not yet ready to make. She did not tell me that evening. Now I understand why. At the time, I had no information with which to understand anything. By May, it happened twice more. Each time, Vanessa responded professionally. Each time, Conrad apologized. But his apologies carried the polished smoothness of a man who had learned that saying sorry was sometimes the easiest way to continue doing what he wanted. The apology was never a reckoning. It was a reset. And after every reset, the next boundary test became slightly more aggressive. He was increasing pressure incrementally. Like weight added to a structure. Not enough in any single moment to create visible failure. But always moving toward it. Vanessa recognized the pattern. In late May, she terminated the therapeutic relationship. She followed every professional requirement. Written notice. Referrals to 2 practitioners in the Kansas City area. A final session to close the relationship appropriately. She was calm. Ethical. Final. She believed that would end it. Conrad believed it was a challenge. The first delivery arrived on a Thursday morning in June. I remember because Thursday was my work-from-home day. I was reviewing drawings inside my office when a delivery truck stopped outside. The arrangement was enormous. White orchids and dark red roses inside a heavy glass vase. The kind of flowers designed to announce how much they cost before anyone reads the card. The delivery driver handed them to me with the detached politeness of someone who delivers romantic confusion for a living. The card read, "Vanessa. Thinking of you. C." I stood in the doorway holding those flowers and felt something cold awaken behind my sternum. Not jealousy. Not yet. Something closer to professional instinct. The feeling an engineer experiences when running a hand across a beam and finding a crack that should not be there. I placed the arrangement on the kitchen counter. I did not throw it away. I did not create a story without evidence. My nature is to collect information before reaching conclusions. That quality is valuable in engineering. Inside a marriage, it can become dangerous when collecting replaces speaking. Vanessa came home that evening. I was preparing dinner. I nodded toward the flowers. "Someone named C is thinking about you." My voice was neutral. Fact-based. Vanessa went still. Only for a fraction of a second. If I had not known her for 6 years, I might have missed it. A former client. I ended his sessions last month. He apparently did not accept the ending. Former client? Yes. I will deal with it. I believed her. Vanessa dealt with things. That was who she was. But somewhere inside my mind, I filed that moment of stillness. Not as evidence. As awareness. I did not yet know Conrad had already researched me. The flowers were not an impulsive gesture. They were his opening move. 2 weeks later, another delivery arrived. A professionally assembled gift basket. Gourmet food. Champagne. A sealed envelope addressed to Vanessa. I did not open it. She read the message privately. She did not tell me what it said. I noticed. I filed it. And again, I remained silent. The third delivery arrived on a Saturday morning in July. A Saturday when both Vanessa and I were home. A Saturday when our marriage was visible through the windows. The package was small. Wrapped in navy paper with a silk ribbon. Inside was a jewelry box. The delivery note had been handwritten in slow, deliberate script. "For everything you deserve, Conrad." I held the note for several seconds. Then I set it beside the jewelry box and walked outside. I stood on the back porch beneath the July heat and forced myself to breathe. There is a difference between a confused former client sending flowers once, and a man who discovers your home address, sends jewelry, and chooses a Saturday morning because he knows the husband will see it. Somewhere between those 2 points, the ghosts of Tracy and Russell Chambers woke. The old voice returned. "You were not enough before. What makes you believe you are enough now?" Vanessa found me on the porch. "Wesley, tell me what is happening." I remained calm. Deliberately calm. Because the alternative was allowing 12 years of unprocessed fear to speak for me. I knew enough to understand that would not help either of us. Vanessa sat on the porch steps. She told me most of the story. The inappropriate remarks during the sessions. The escalation. The termination. The fact that she believed the flowers and gifts were retaliation against the boundaries she had enforced. She did not tell me everything. I would learn later that she omitted several details. Not because she wanted to deceive me. Because she knew my history. She knew what Tracy had done. She feared that hearing the complete picture might reopen something inside me that had taken years to stabilize. Vanessa believed she was protecting me. Instead, the gaps she left became empty spaces my fear eagerly filled. "How wealthy is he?" I asked. Vanessa met my eyes. "Very." One word. There it was. The detail had spent 11 years preparing myself never to fear again. A wealthy man wanted my wife. And despite the house, career, savings, and success I had built, the old humiliation returned as though no time had passed. For the next 48 hours, I did something I am not proud of. I retreated. I did not accuse Vanessa. I want that understood. I did not shout. I did not inspect her phone. I did not call her dishonest. I simply became quiet. The particular kind of quiet Vanessa knew meant I was carrying something I had not trusted anyone else to hold. My answers became shorter. The space between us in bed became wider. I went to work earlier. Stayed later. I convinced myself I was controlling my emotions. In reality, I was allowing Conrad to enter our marriage without ever opening the door. Vanessa saw it. She did not pressure me. Instead, she called Gloria Howell. Gloria had been her closest friend since college. Their friendship had survived careers, marriages, grief, and 15 years of changing lives. Gloria ran a small marketing firm and possessed the practical intelligence of someone who became clearer when everyone else panicked. Vanessa trusted her completely. Over several conversations in July, Gloria learned the whole story. Conrad. The sessions. The escalating comments. The termination. The deliveries. The handwritten message. Then Vanessa admitted what frightened her most. Wesley has gone quiet. You know what that means. Gloria knew. What Vanessa did not know was that Gloria had already decided silence was helping the wrong man. During August, Conrad escalated. Later, through his own admissions and the evidence Gloria helped collect, we discovered he had conducted a background investigation on me. He knew about Tracy. He knew about Russell Chambers. He knew my first wife had left me for a wealthier man. He knew the divorce had created a vulnerability no amount of professional success had completely removed. He identified the crack. Then he began pressing against it. Another arrangement arrived with a note Vanessa intercepted before I saw it. She photographed the message and sent it to Gloria. The words implied intimacy that did not exist. A supposed private joke. A reference designed to sound like a shared memory. Conrad understood exactly what would happen if I read those words without context. He did not need Vanessa to betray me. He needed me to believe she might. My imagination would perform the rest of the work. He wanted Tracy's voice inside my head when I looked at my wife. And for a while, he succeeded. I never accused Vanessa of being unfaithful. But trust does not always collapse through accusations. Sometimes it cools through withdrawal. I became shorter in conversation. Less present. I slept beside her with the distance of a man holding a question he was too frightened to ask. Vanessa watched our marriage change from the outside. She had evidence of what Conrad was doing. But she did not yet have the kind of proof she could place before me without giving my fear more material to interpret. She needed him to admit it. On a recording. In his own voice. Her plan was careful. The therapeutic relationship had ended. She would contact Conrad as a private individual confronting unwanted behavior. She would agree to meet him. She knew his ego would interpret the meeting as an opening. She knew how he spoke when he believed he had control. She would let his arrogance do the work. She would record the conversation. Get him to admit that the gifts were intentional. That the notes were designed to make me suspicious. That he had investigated me. Then she would bring the recording home. She would show me that there had never been an affair. There had been a campaign. And she had been fighting it alone. She selected a lakeside restaurant near Table Rock Lake outside Branson. Conrad had mentioned it during therapy as a place where he conducted informal business. Vanessa told him she wanted a private conversation somewhere neutral. Conrad agreed immediately. His ego translated her request into surrender. She told Gloria the full plan. She told me she was taking a short overnight trip with Gloria. A little distance. Some air. She did not tell me she intended to meet Conrad. She did not want me near him until she possessed the confession. Again, she believed she was protecting me. Again, protection built from silence created danger of its own. Gloria called me on a Tuesday morning in the middle of September. I was inside my office reviewing structural drawings for a commercial project on the south side of Springfield. Melanie Torres, my assistant, had placed coffee on my desk. Everything felt ordinary. Then my phone rang. "Wesley," Gloria said, "I need you to listen carefully. And I need you not to make a decision until I finish. That is a specific opening. It needs to be. What I am about to tell you requires a man who can hear the entire truth before reacting. Can you do that? Tell me." Gloria told me everything. Not the shortened version Vanessa had given me. Every detail. The escalating comments during therapy. The way Conrad ignored professional boundaries. The background investigation. The deliberate use of my first marriage. The notes written to resemble evidence of an affair. Vanessa's fear that telling me too much would cause me to relive Tracy's betrayal. I sat at my desk and listened. It was one of the most difficult things I had done in years. Every sentence carried two kinds of pain. The revelation of what Conrad had done, and the realization that my silence had given him exactly the damage he wanted. "She is meeting him at the lake tomorrow," Gloria said. "She is going to record him. She believes that once she brings the confession home, she can show you the truth." "Why are you telling me?" "Because she does not want you there. And I think she is wrong." "Why?" "A recording is evidence. It may begin a legal process. But Conrad Bale has spent his entire life doing whatever he wants because nobody has ever stood in front of him and made the consequences real." Gloria paused. "If Vanessa gets him talking, that proves what he did. But if you appear beside her and make it clear that you know everything, that sends a different message. It tells him the wound he tried to exploit has failed. It tells him the marriage he wanted to divide is now standing in front of him together." I remained silent. Gloria continued. "Men like Conrad can drag legal cases through years of delays. They can exhaust people. But they understand exposure. They understand risk. If you arrive with proof already being recorded, and you make him understand the next move threatens his public career, this may end immediately." "Does Vanessa know you called?" "No. She will be angry. Possibly. But I think she will understand." I made a decision inside my office that morning. It was similar to the decision I had made inside my truck after the first divorce. But this time, I was not promising merely to survive. I was deciding to defend what Vanessa and I had built. Not because she belonged to me. She did not. Not because my pride demanded a confrontation. Because a man had studied my pain and attempted to weaponize it against both of us. I had kept that wound hidden for 12 years. Hidden wounds are vulnerable. It was time to bring mine into the light. I called an old friend named Derek Price. Derek had been my college roommate and later became a private security consultant in Springfield. I explained the situation. I told him I needed a witness and a clean recording. He did not ask unnecessary questions. "I will be there." That was all. On Wednesday, September 11, 2024, I drove toward Table Rock Lake. Some things cannot be fully engineered in advance. You can review the site, calculate the load, account for every known variable. But when construction begins, there comes a moment when knowledge must become action. I arrived at 11:40 in the morning. Derek was already waiting near the restaurant inside a charcoal Jeep Grand Cherokee. He wore a plain navy jacket. A discreet camera was attached near his lapel. His expression belonged to a man who had stood inside many rooms moments before something serious occurred. The restaurant was called the Osprey. It sat along the waterfront with a wide deck extending above the lake. The view was beautiful. Blue-green water. Ozark Hills beginning to show the first colors of autumn. A September sky so clear it appeared polished. It was a beautiful place to confront something ugly. That seemed appropriate for Conrad. I remained inside my truck for several minutes. Derek approached my window. "She is inside. They are seated on the outdoor deck. Her bag is on the table. The recorder is active. She does not know we are here." "Good. Do you want to review what you are going to say?" "No. I know what needs to be said." Derek nodded once. He respected clean plans. I climbed from the truck. I want to be honest about how I felt while crossing that parking lot. I did not feel rage. Rage is what a man feels when he believes he has no other tool. I had evidence. A witness. Legal options. And the truth. What I felt was clarity. The clarity that comes when every major variable has finally been identified. When the design is complete. When only execution remains. I entered the restaurant. The hostess began asking whether I had a reservation. "I am joining someone on the deck." I continued walking. Through the dining room. Past the bar. Through the sliding glass doors. Then I saw them. Vanessa sat near the railing with the lake behind her. She leaned forward slightly. Elbows near the table. Hands folded. Her open bag rested beside her. Inside it, the recorder was running. She appeared composed. but I knew the tension inside her shoulders. She was doing something that cost her. Across from her sat Conrad Bale. I had studied photographs of him the previous night. Seeing him in person was different. He was broad through the chest. Silver-haired. Perfectly dressed without appearing to have tried. The watch on his wrist probably cost more than my truck. He occupied the table with the relaxed confidence of a man accustomed to having his attention treated as a privilege. He was speaking. Leaning closer. Smiling as though the outcome had already been decided. Vanessa saw me first. Her eyes found mine across the deck. She went completely still. So quickly and completely that Conrad noticed in the middle of his sentence. He turned. I walked toward their table. I pulled out the chair beside Vanessa. Not across from Conrad. Beside my wife. Then I sat. Unhurried. I folded my hands on the table. Derek stepped onto the deck and positioned himself near the railing several feet away. Not threatening. Present. Conrad looked at me. Then at Vanessa. Then back at me. You must be the husband. His voice remained smooth. A man recalculating while pretending nothing had changed. Wesley Cash. And you are Conrad Bale. This is a private meeting. It was. Now it is a different kind of meeting. I did not raise my voice. I did not lean toward him. I did not perform dominance through clenched fists or threatening posture. Insecure men often move constantly when they want to appear powerful. Stillness has a different effect when it belongs to someone who is not afraid. Conrad looked at Vanessa. You told him. She did not need to. I held his gaze. I am going to explain how much I know because I believe you should hear the rest of this conversation with complete information. Conrad closed his mouth. You sent gifts to my home. You wrote messages designed to resemble evidence of a relationship that never existed. You researched my history. You discovered my first marriage ended because my wife left me for a wealthier man. And you made a calculation. His expression tightened. If you applied pressure to that specific wound, you believed I would doubt Vanessa. You believed the foundation of our marriage would crack. That was your plan. Conrad said nothing. His eyes remained active. Searching for the angle. The flaw. The statement he could deny. The problem with your plan, I continued, is that you misunderstood the structure. You thought you were dealing with a man who broke once and remained weak in the same place. I paused. What you were actually dealing with was a man who broke once, rebuilt, and has spent every day since making certain he never breaks the same way again. I allowed the silence to settle. Conrad leaned backward slightly. An involuntary retreat. I doubt he knew he had made it. I noticed. Now I am going to tell you what happens next. I need you to listen before deciding what you are going to do. Your inappropriate conduct during therapy was documented. Vanessa maintained detailed clinical notes. The relationship was formally terminated. Your conduct afterward established a separate pattern. Flowers. Gifts. Jewelry. Messages deliberately framed to imply intimacy. Every delivery has records. Every note has been photographed. You created a documented pattern of harassment after the professional relationship ended. Conrad's jaw tightened. The confidence remained on the surface. But the calculation beneath it had changed. If that continues, we file civil claims, professional harassment, invasion of privacy, and every other claim our attorney determines is supported by the evidence. I will ensure the filing is available to every relevant business publication in Missouri before the first hearing. Your investors will read it. Your board members will read it. Your former wives will probably read it. And the people who currently mistake your confidence for character will read it. Conrad opened his mouth. I continued before he spoke. And then there is the investigation you conducted on me. You searched my divorce history. Identified a psychological vulnerability. And attempted to exploit it for the purpose of destabilizing my marriage. That is something I have already discussed with counsel. We will allow the attorneys to explain what exposure that creates. Vanessa had not spoken. She sat beside me, watching. I could feel the quality of her silence. She was not frozen. She was witnessing something she had not expected. Later, I would understand what it meant to her. At that moment, I still had one final thing to say. I used Conrad's first name deliberately. Evenly. The way you use someone's name when you want him to understand that you see him clearly. Conrad. I know what you are. I understand how you operate when someone denies you what you want. I am not angry. I do not have enough energy to waste anger on men like you. But I need you to hear this as clearly as I can say it. I leaned forward only slightly. My wife is not available to you. My marriage is not a structure you can dismantle. If you send one more item to her home, if you attempt one more direct contact with Vanessa, if you use another person as a proxy to reach either of us, I will spend whatever it requires, for however long it requires, to make certain every person in your professional and personal life understands exactly what you did. Not because I enjoy revenge. Because your next decision will make exposure necessary. The deck was silent. Water moved beneath us. A boat passed far across the lake. Conrad looked at me for a long time. The calculation continued behind his eyes. Men like Conrad always search for another angle. Another pressure point. Another way to convert resistance into surrender. Then something changed. Not remorse. I do not believe Conrad Bale experienced remorse the way ordinary people do. What appeared was recognition. The recognition of a man who had discovered an obstacle too expensive to move. He straightened. Lifted his glass. Took a slow drink of water. Then he said, "I believe we have all said what we came here to say." He stood. Buttoned his jacket. A final composed gesture from a man who refused to let anyone watch him leave in disorder. He looked briefly at Vanessa. Then at me. And walked away without another word. Derek watched him cross the deck. Then he looked at me and gave a small nod. Everything had been captured. Clear. Complete. Usable. A moment later, Derek stepped away. Then only Vanessa and I remained at the table. The Ozark Hills surrounded us. September sunlight moved across the water. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Vanessa looked at me with 100 questions inside her eyes. She had enough strength to ask only one. How? Gloria. Vanessa closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were shining. Not quite tears. The emotion remained at the edge of the composure she had worked so hard to preserve. I told her not to involve you. I know. She should not have. She made the decision she believed was right. Vanessa exhaled. Long. Slow. The same kind of breath I had heard months earlier in our bed. Except this time, it was not the breath of someone taking on more weight. It was the breath of someone finally putting it down. Wesley, I was afraid. Not of Conrad. I could manage Conrad. I was afraid of what this situation would do to you. After Tracy. After everything you told me. I did not know how to show you the complete picture without reopening something that took you years to survive. I know. I believed if I handled it myself. I know, Vanessa. I was not trying to exclude you. I know. I reached across the table and covered her hands with mine. I know all of it. Gloria told me everything. Now I need you to hear me. Vanessa nodded. I am not the man I was in 2013. I was that man once. He is not inside this story anymore. I know who you are. I know why you came here. You were protecting our marriage. You were fighting for us. Vanessa tightened her hands around mine. I should have told you everything sooner. I should have trusted you with the complete truth. I was so focused on protecting you from the fear that I did not realize my silence was feeding it. And I became quiet when I should have asked. I looked at her. We both did the wrong version of something for the right reason. That is not betrayal. That is marriage under pressure. Two people who love each other making imperfect decisions because each one is trying to protect the other. Vanessa laughed softly. It was the kind of laughter that lies beside tears and sometimes becomes both. Apple pie would improve this conversation. I did not bring one. We will stop somewhere on the way home. Agreed. We remained on the deck for another hour. We ordered coffee. Then we talked. Really talked. The way we had not spoken in weeks. Vanessa told me everything. Every comment Conrad had made. Every boundary he tested. Every apology he used as permission to continue. The first gift. The later notes. The background investigation. The deliberate cruelty of using Tracy against me. I listened. And whenever the old fear rose inside my chest, I named it. That is the old wound. This is not the old marriage. This is Vanessa. This is my wife fighting for us. Naming it changed its power. Fear hidden in darkness feels endless. Fear placed into language becomes something two people can examine together. Conrad went silent after that day. Completely. No flowers. No messages. No calls. No assistants contacting Vanessa on his behalf. Whether it was Derek's recording, the legal consequences, the threat of public exposure, or simply the realization that our marriage had become more united instead of less, I cannot say. I do not care. Conrad recalculated and redirected himself somewhere else. That was enough. Gloria told Vanessa about her call to me later that evening. Vanessa's first response was silence. Her second was, "I should be angry with you." Her third was, "I am very grateful you did it." Gloria, who has never suffered from false modesty, answered, "I know." I called Chamberlain that night. He lived in Joplin, approximately 75 miles west. He answered on the second ring. "How did it go?" "Good. It went well." "You sound different." "I feel different." And I did. Not because I had confronted an extremely wealthy man and watched him retreat. That was merely a problem resolved. I felt different because of the drive home. Vanessa and I had placed every fear, mistake, and silence between us. We had examined them together. And we had made a deliberate decision that Conrad Bale would receive no permanent space inside our marriage. Not even as an enemy. That is the part I continue thinking about. Conrad had spent his entire adult life using money, information, and pressure to get what he wanted. He studied people. Found the vulnerable places. Applied force. He believed every person eventually yielded if enough pressure was placed correctly. He had identified what appeared to be the weakest joint inside my marriage. My history. My shame. The fear that another wealthy man could make me feel small again. He pressed with precision. What he failed to understand was the difference between an unhealed wound and healed scar tissue. From the outside, they may look similar. Both prove damage occurred. But one remains vulnerable. The other can become stronger than the original material. That is basic engineering. Conrad should have researched more carefully. By October, life on West Walnut Street began returning to its rhythms. Saturday coffee on the porch swing. Mine with 2 sugars. Vanessa's black. Sunday groceries. Eden sleeping near our feet. Dinner at Flame when something deserved celebrating. The old routines returned. But they were no longer exactly the same. Neither were we. Some structures survive pressure and return to their previous condition. Others are reinforced. We chose reinforcement. We began meeting with a marriage counselor named Dr. Angela Pardon on East Sunshine Street. Not because the marriage was failing. Because we had come close enough to failure to understand the value of maintenance. Dr. Pardon was practical. Direct. Unimpressed by dramatic excuses. She asked questions neither Vanessa nor I had asked properly. Why did I believe silence was safer than vulnerability? Why did Vanessa assume protecting me required withholding information? Why had Tracy's choice become a judgment I continued making about myself? And why did we both believe love meant carrying fear alone? We attended twice each month. Those sessions became 2 of the most valuable hours in my schedule. We revisited the conversation about children. This time, we did not place it back on the shelf. We made a decision together. That decision belongs to us. Not every part of a marriage needs to be placed before an audience. Some truths become stronger when protected rather than displayed. Vanessa also changed her professional systems. Not because fear controlled her. Because experience had revealed a weakness in the process. She strengthened her client intake screening. Added clearer language concerning behavioral expectations. Created an earlier review point for boundary violations. Established a faster escalation process when inappropriate conduct occurred. Consulted her professional liability insurer. Reviewed reporting options with the Missouri licensing authorities. Vanessa did not merely survive difficult experiences. She converted them into better systems. That is one of the many reasons I love her. As for me, I began changing things that seemed unrelated but were not. I started running 3 mornings each week along the Galloway Creek Greenway Trail. I repainted the guest room. I cooked ribs on Saturdays because I was good at it and because the smell made the house feel like somewhere worth returning to. I refinished the porch swing. Dark walnut stain. 2 coats. Vanessa said it looked better than when we bought it. I agreed. Some things do not merely hold when properly maintained. They improve. One evening, several months after the lake, Vanessa and I sat on that swing. Eden slept beneath us. The street was quiet. Vanessa held her coffee in both hands. I keep thinking about the moment you walked onto the deck. So do I. I was angry for approximately 3 seconds. Only 3? Possibly 4. Then what? I felt relieved. She looked toward the street. I had spent months believing I needed to protect you from the truth. Then you sat beside me and I realized I had underestimated the man I married. I considered the words. I underestimated you, too. How? I allowed Conrad's messages to become louder than 6 years of knowing you. Vanessa covered my hand. We found our way back. We did. But next time, we do not find our way back. We refuse to leave in the first place. Agreed. The first time my marriage ended, I believed the other man possessed something I did not. More money. More confidence. A more impressive life. I spent years trying to become richer, stronger, and more successful so that no man could ever make me feel insufficient again. But Conrad taught me something Tracy never could. Security is not the certainty that nobody will try to take what matters to you. There will always be people who see boundaries as invitations. Security is knowing the person beside you is choosing you even while someone else applies pressure. And knowing you are capable of standing beside that person instead of allowing old fear to pull you away. Conrad believed money made him powerful. It gave him access. Information. Influence. The ability to hire people who could search another man's history and identify the most painful part. But money cannot manufacture genuine loyalty. It cannot force love to become available. It cannot create intimacy where none exists. And when 2 people stop allowing silence to separate them, money has no doorway through which to enter. I once thought my first marriage proved I was not enough. It did not. It proved Tracy wanted a different life. Her decision was not a measurement of my worth. It took me 12 years to understand that. Conrad's greatest mistake was believing I still needed him to confirm it. He attempted to make Vanessa resemble Tracy. Flowers. Jewelry. Messages implying secrets. He wanted me to place my first wife's face over my second wife's choices. For several weeks, I nearly did. Then I learned the truth. While Tracy had been leaving me, Vanessa had been fighting for me. While Russell had offered another life, Conrad had offered only manipulation. And while my younger self had sat helplessly at a kitchen table, the man I had become walked onto a lakeside deck with the truth beside him. That was the difference. Not money. Not age. Not physical strength. Knowledge. Trust. And the willingness to show up before fear had the chance to finish the story. People often imagine defending a marriage means fighting another person. It rarely does. The real battle is usually against silence. Assumption. Pride. The old wounds each partner carries into the room. Conrad was merely the pressure. The danger came from what Vanessa and I did beneath it. She tried to protect me by withholding. I tried to protect myself by withdrawing. Both choices came from love and fear mixed together. That mixture can become destructive when nobody names it. The marriage began healing the moment we stopped protecting one another from the conversation. I do not know what became of Conrad's treatment. I do not know whether he found another therapist. Whether he addressed his drinking. Whether he ever understood why people repeatedly left his life. That is not my responsibility. I hope he changed. Not because he deserves access to anyone he harmed. Because every unchanged person creates more damage. But whether Conrad became better no longer matters to our story. He left our lives the day he walked from that deck. What remained was ours. The porch swing. Saturday coffee. Eden at the foot of the bed. Counseling appointments. Honest conversations that were sometimes uncomfortable and always necessary. A marriage no longer protected by pretending we were invulnerable. A marriage protected by knowing exactly where we were vulnerable and refusing to hide those places from one another. Vanessa once told me therapy is not about erasing the past. It is about changing the authority the past has over the present. Tracy still left. Russell still had more money. The divorce still happened. Nothing can rewrite those facts. But they no longer decide how I interpret every difficult moment. They no longer speak before Vanessa does. They no longer receive a vote inside my marriage. The scar remains. I no longer consider that a weakness. Scars are evidence that damage occurred and healing followed. They remind you where reinforcement may be needed. They also remind you that you survived the original failure. Conrad saw the scar and assumed it marked the easiest place to break me. He did not understand it marked the place where I had already learned how to rebuild. The first time someone took my marriage from me, I believed I had lost because I lacked enough. Enough wealth. Enough status. Enough confidence. The second time a man tried, I finally understood the truth. A marriage cannot be stolen merely because someone richer arrives. It can only be weakened when the people inside it stop standing together. Conrad did not fail because I frightened him. He failed because Vanessa had never chosen him. And because once the truth was spoken, I chose to sit beside her rather than across from her. That is the image I remember most from Table Rock Lake. Not Conrad leaving. Not Derek's camera. Not the expensive watch on Conrad's wrist. My chair beside Vanessa. For weeks, fear had placed emotional distance between us. Then I walked onto that deck and closed it. One chair. One movement. A simple decision concerning where I belonged. Beside my wife. When pressure comes, that is often the only decision that matters. Not whether you are afraid. You probably will be. Not whether you make every correct choice immediately. You probably will not. The question is whether, after the fear and mistakes, you still know where to sit. Whether you choose the person you love instead of the story your wound is telling you. Whether you speak before silence becomes a third person inside the relationship. Today, the porch swing still hangs outside our house on West Walnut Street. The stain has faded slightly beneath the Missouri sun. I will refinish it again when necessary. Vanessa still drinks black coffee. Mine still has 2 sugars. Eden is older and moves more slowly but continues monitoring every emotion in the household. Vanessa still challenges powerful people who need to hear no. I still review structural drawings more times than necessary. And sometimes, on Saturday mornings, we sit without speaking. The silence is different now. It is not filled with withheld truths. It is the quiet of 2 people who know they can speak whenever something matters. The first time my marriage ended, I watched. The second time someone tried to end it, I showed up. But the true victory was not making Conrad leave. It was learning that Vanessa and I never needed to defeat another man. We needed to defeat the silence he had created between us. Once we did that, Conrad Bale had already lost. He believed my wound was the weakest point in the structure. He was wrong. It was the place where the strongest reinforcement had been installed. And when he finally applied all the pressure he had carefully designed, our marriage did not collapse. It revealed what it had been built to carry.